Stirling is one of the most haunted places in Scotland. There have been reports of strange goings-on in the Bastion and the neighbouring W.H. Smith in the Thistle Centre. So much so, staff at W.H. Smith and the nearby Holland and Barrett intensely dislike going into their respective storerooms, thanks to a presence there. Some reported feeling uneasy, while others said they heard mutterings or names being said, yet they were completely alone in the storeroom. Even in the newer Thistle Marches, an extension to the Thistle Centre, a strange encounter was reported by a security guard who once felt there was someone behind him, so turned round quickly, only to find that he was alone. Suddenly, unseen hands gripped his throat and forced him against a wall, although after a few moments released him. But it's in the Old Town where these presences are most prevalent. These ghostly spectres have been seen at the castle, the Darnley Coffee House, and the old toll booth, to name a few. Stirling Castle can boast several ghosts or entities, its most famous being the ghost of a soldier that was allegedly caught on camera. The image was taken in the mid-1930s and shows a soldier in full Highland garb walking through an archway towards the upper square of the castle. The photograph came into the hands of Sir Humphrey Gale, who was a friend of the photographer, and this friend told him he remembered seeing a sentry, but not a soldier wearing a kilt walking under the archway when he snapped the shot. Eventually, the image was presented to the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders Museum at the castle by Reginald MacLeod. But this wasn't the only time this mysterious soldier was seen at the castle. In 1952, two soldiers spotted a strange soldier wearing an older-style uniform and kilt, marching along the battlements from the direction of the Douglas Gardens. As this soldier approached the governor's house, he simply vanished into thin air. One last sighting of this apparition came in 1998, when a tourist, Margaret Obermeyer, spoke to a soldier who appeared to be rude to her when she asked for directions to the nearest bathroom. Ready to give him a piece of her mind, she followed him down a dark corridor, but there was no one else there, only her. Another apparition that has been seen at the castle is the Green Lady. Who she was, no one knows. Some believe she was a newlywed, but that her love was killed during one of the sieges of Stirling Castle, where he starved to death, which resulted in her dying of a broken heart. Others believe that she was the governor's daughter who fell in love with a man below her station, while others still believe she was a Highland-born maid to Queen Mary, or Mary Queen of Scots as she's better known, who saved her mistress when the bedchamber caught fire on 13th September 1561, but she herself perished in the flames. She is said to have had the second sight and foresaw the death of the Queen at Stirling, so sat vigilantly by her bedside. She lit a candle to try and keep herself awake, but closed her eyes momentarily and fell into a deep sleep. She woke up, choking on smoke, roused her mistress, and the Queen escaped. The last time the Green Lady was seen was in 1929, when a soldier who was recovering in nearby Argyll's lodging, which was by then a military hospital, saw her and was frightened out of his wits. He claimed he had seen the girl in the green dress as she was coming down some stairs, so being a gentleman had stepped aside, only for her to walk right through him. If the ghost of the Highland maidservant is ever seen, then something terrible will happen. So the legend goes. Spectres have been seen all round the castle, including a cloaked or robed figure with the hood pulled up in the main square, thought to be the ghost of a monk. In early 1892, a soldier with the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders was on sentry duty at around 3 a.m. one morning when he heard a voice say, "Is that you, Jack?" Turning round quickly, he saw what he thought was the figure of a woman coming towards him from the ramparts. He got such a fright, he fainted, and was only discovered some time later by the relieving party, when he was taken to the guard-room to recover. When he came round, he tried to tell his story, but fainted once more. He was taken to the military hospital, where he managed to tell his tale, although he could only articulate what it was, as he'd lost his voice, and could only whisper in husky tones. Sceptics thought it could have been soldiers playing a trick on him, or the voice of a poacher being carried up and over the castle walls, but he was convinced it was a ghost. He was released from the army shortly after the incident. Not far from the castle is Cowan's Hospital, where there is a statue of John Cowan himself. He was 17th century Stirling's greatest philanthropist, donating money to better the town, leaving 40,000 merks Scots when he died in 1633 for the endowment of an almshouse, which we see today. The statue of Cowan was created by master mason John Mill, and recently was refurbished, but it's said that on the stroke of midnight on Hogmanay, or New Year's Eve, Auld Stanybreeks, as he became known, comes to life, as the spirit of Cowan makes its way to the statue from his grave in the grounds of the Church of the Holy Rood. He then dances down the street merrily, although sightings of him are few and far between. If he doesn't do this, then it's simply because the church bells have rendered him deaf over the years. Cowan's house in St Mary's Wynd is also said to be haunted. There have been reports of a baby crying in its courtyard. This was believed to have been one of John Cowan's illegitimate children, which was drowned soon after birth in the well of the house, but whether this was true or not is unknown. The Old Town graveyard is well known for its otherworldly spectres. One of these is the Pink Lady, a girl dressed in pink silk who wanders between the castle, which overlooks the cemetery, and the Church of the Holy Rood. She is said to be surrounded by a pink aura, and there is the fragrance of cherry blossom as she passes by. Who the Pink Lady is, or was, is unknown. Nearby is the back walk, where the spectre of a nun, known as the Black Lady, has reputedly been seen. She was said to have fallen in love with a priest who spurned her, and her ghost seeks him out on Back Walk. In September 2000, work was being carried out at the old toll booth in Stirling to change it into an arts centre. During construction work, a skeleton in a pine coffin was discovered, and it turned out to be the remains of Alan Mayer, the last man to be hanged in Stirling on 4th October 1843. Customers at the old toll booth have said that a waitress told them the place was haunted by an old man, but only on a Wednesday. The day Mayer was hanged was a Wednesday. The area she had pointed to was also where the skeleton had been discovered, but she hadn't known the story until then. When the building was used as a tourist information centre, a woman who worked there in the early 1990s felt like she was being watched. She was told that apparently that only occurred when new staff began working there. As a theatre, the apparition of an old man used to appear. Once the art centre opened and the story became known, unusual activity was reported, such as wine glasses falling off tables, and upstairs, where the old cells had been, an employee heard what he thought sounded like a body being dragged across the floor. The Darnley Coffee House in Broad Street is a popular spot for a catch-up and a light lunch. Over the years there have been numerous reports that not everyone is welcome. Built in the early 17th century, and once owned by the Erskines, the Earls of Mar and the keepers of Stirling Castle, the coffee house was spared demolition in the 1950s, in part due to its historic importance. It's believed that Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, husband of Mary Queen of Scots, frequented the previous building on the site, which was an alehouse and brothel. There have been reports of doors slamming shut when no one is near them, and pots and pans falling off their shelves. One of the most bizarre reports was that the chairs, all neatly placed under the tables at night, had all been moved by morning. The members of staff denied being behind it. On another occasion, a coffee pot was thrown across the room, and customers have reported being touched on the shoulder when no one has been near. In the dead of night, a figure has been seen at the archway, and on occasion the temperature in the coffee house has dropped markedly. In the mid-17th century, the coffee house was known as Jonnet or Janet Kilbowie's Tavern, where the local magistrates and councillors would meet for food and copious amounts of drink. It's possible the ghosts of these merry men may have caused so many strange occurrences at the coffee house, and made both customers and staff feel uncomfortable. In Baker Street, a ghost appeared at Nicky Tam's bar. The building dates from the early 18th century and was once known as the Caledonia Vaults, and it was here a mysterious photograph was found, hidden behind plasterboard in an alcove. To this day, no one knows who the gentleman is, but could this be the gentleman who haunts the building? In 1999, a plumber, Peter Richardson, saw a shadowy figure while working at the property and refused to work there alone at night. This shadowy figure has been seen on numerous occasions, but things got worse for the new proprietors, Christopher and Andrea Lindsay. Mutterings could be heard, and Andrea began seeing orbs. Her mother even told her she felt as though someone had walked through her, but in 2000, Chris, on several occasions, felt as though he was being choked while in bed, and this always happened at 4 in the morning. It also happened that one morning, at the same time, Andrea swore she heard footsteps and the flat's door being opened. The footsteps got nearer the bedroom, then stopped outside the door. She waited, then heard the footsteps going back the way they'd come. Nothing was ever found, and the door was still locked. The Lindsays sold the pub in 2007, but it now has the reputation of being Stirling's most haunted pub. Another ghost worth mentioning is what became known as the Mill Hall ghost. This ghost first appeared in 1929, when miners at Mill Hall Pit saw a ghostly white figure on the roads leading to the pit from the St Ninian's end of the town. The miners began going to work in larger groups, but police believed it was a practical joker. Some time before this, a woman had appeared in long black flowing robes on the same road, causing much alarm, but the miners pelted this ghost with stones, and it was never seen again. However, the white ghost was then seen in the town. Mrs. Doyle of 7 Middle Craigs had been in bed when around midnight she heard a scream. "Oh, there's the ghost," she cried, as she looked out of her back window. In the corner of the backyard was a white figure crouching down. It slowly rose to around 6 feet in height, and waving its outstretched arms, began moving towards her window. She called for her neighbours, and several of the men ran downstairs. A local constable happened to be there at the time and followed them into the backyard. This yard was accessed by a heavy door, and after drawing back the bolt, there was nothing to be seen. They believed the noise from the bolt had alerted the ghost, and it had disappeared. One night at midnight, a woman was making her way home and saw the spectre at Ballingeath Cemetery, and the apparition was also seen in the Raploch by a young boy. A woman at Castle Hill happened to look out of her window, only to see this ghostly figure look directly at her through the window, and she duly fainted. The last sighting of this ghost was in 1932, when 2 men saw the alleged ghost going along Port Street in the early hours of Tuesday, 19th April. James Mackay of the Candle Rigs in Alloa was going along Port Street when he saw the white-clad figure at the top of the Craigs. Initially he thought it was a police officer, but as it began to walk towards him, realised it wasn't. He described it as having a cowled head with slits for its eyes and mouth. At the same time, a local miner was just heading to work when he too saw the strange figure, which then disappeared up Dumbarton Road. A police officer happened to meet the men, who duly reported what they saw, but again nothing was found, and the incident remains a mystery. No real explanation can be given for these mysterious incidents in Stirling. Maybe someone was playing tricks in some of these cases. Perhaps they were the figment of people's imaginations. Or just maybe all the sightings were true, and there really are ghosts in our midst at Stirling. If you enjoyed this episode of Scotland's History, please like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.